Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking one of the most hotly debated, deeply fascinating, and heavily guarded topics of our time. We're talking about the high-stakes push for UAP transparency. Now, UAP, or Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, is just the modern bureaucratic term for what we all used to call UFOs. And you know, recently, the whole conversation around this has shifted entirely. It's moved away from fringe conspiracy theories and right into the halls of Congress and the Oval Office. Today, we're going to look strictly at the source material. We're digging into interviews with lawmakers, documentary investigations, and recent executive actions to understand the real-time battle over what the government supposedly knows and why some officials are claiming it's being hidden from us. Now, we aren't here to tell you what to believe, but rather to map out the incredible claims and the bureaucratic walls that are currently clashing in Washington.
So, we'll start our journey in the highly classified rooms of Capitol Hill. Section 1. The Closed-Door Briefings. Recently, there have been a series of highly classified SIFE briefings. For those who might not know, SIFEs are sensitive compartmented information facilities, basically super secure rooms where top-secret intelligence is shared. Well, Congressman Tim Burchett walked out of one of these with a completely altered perspective. We're reporting on his stated claims here to give you a window into what elected officials are allegedly being shown behind those locked doors. He stated very clearly, "If the country were able to see and hear what I saw, it would be a paradigm shift." That is a massive statement. He described seeing incredible photos and hearing testimony that fundamentally changed his worldview. But alongside that awe, Burchett expressed some real, deep frustration. He talked about dealing with what he calls complete arrogance from certain intelligence officials. Basically, bureaucrats who reportedly just dismiss questions or try to explain away highly documented sightings as, metallic birthday balloons, actively trying to disrupt the search for real answers.
And what's really interesting here is the sheer scale of the physics being described by military personnel. According to Burchett's briefings, we are absolutely not just talking about blurry lights in the sky. We're talking about physical objects tracked by Navy officers on sonar and visually confirmed by some of our absolute best military pilots. These crafts allegedly hover for hours over the ocean without ever running out of fuel. They travel exponentially faster than any known human technology. And honestly, the most staggering claim, Burchett notes that the raw energy required for these crafts to just shoot straight up into the sky is roughly equivalent to the power needed to fuel the entire city of Los Angeles.
So the obvious question is, whose are they? Burchett logically deduces the origins of these crafts in three pretty straightforward steps. Step 1. He argues it's not Russia. His thinking is, if they had this tech, they wouldn't be bogged down in a conventional ground war in Ukraine right now. Step 2. It's not China. Because if Beijing possessed technology that outpaced ours by literal centuries, they'd already dominate the globe financially and militarily. And step 3, he doesn't believe it's the United States. Why? Well, because the U.S. military wouldn't risk flying $500 million conventional aircraft, not to mention risking the lives of our pilots, anywhere near these things just to test them out. So by eliminating the major superpowers, we are left with a massive, glaring question mark.
Which brings us right into Section 2, Loopholes and Bureaucracy.
If these objects are real, and they aren't ours, how on earth is a secret this big being kept? Congressman Burchett recently detailed a conversation he had with President Trump about exactly this issue. He described the secrecy as being like peeling the layers of an onion, where you just have to keep peeling it back to bypass these lifetime career officials who absolutely refuse to release information. And the depth of that secrecy is genuinely alarming. During one of these classified briefings, an unelected bureaucrat allegedly told lawmakers point blank the president is on a need-to-know basis. I mean, just think about that for a second. Elected representatives and even the commander-in-chief are supposedly being stonewalled by a permanent intelligence infrastructure hiding behind this impenetrable wall of national security.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they legally get away with it. Government agencies, think the FBI or the Department of Defense, they're subject to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. If the public demands documents, eventually, legally, they have to hand them over. But private aerospace corporations, they are completely exempt from FOIA. According to Burchett, the government has taken recovered UAP materials and deliberately farmed them out to private defense contractors. This creates a massive, almost bulletproof legal loophole. The public simply cannot request what a private corporation holds, effectively burying the evidence.
But then you got to ask, how do the scientists inside these private corporations keep quiet? The answer is a concept called compartmentalization. This is the practice of dividing sensitive information so tightly that individuals only ever know their specific, narrow task. Nobody gets to see the whole puzzle. Burchett actually compared this directly to Oak Ridge during World War II. Back then, husbands and wives worked at the exact same facility, but had absolutely no idea they were both building the atomic bomb until the war was completely over. Today, that means the people dissecting these UAP materials might not even know exactly what the whole object is. And the original officials with the overarching knowledge? Well, they're mostly gone.
And that fading institutional memory takes us to a much darker chapter. Section 3. The Missing Scientists. As journalists like Jeremy Corbell and some fringe members of Congress dig deeper into this, they're running into claims that escalate the stakes way, way beyond simple bureaucratic red tape. We're now looking at active FBI investigations into individuals connected to the aeronautical defense industry. So the question we really have to neutrally pose based on the source material is this just a string of tragic coincidences? The White House has actually acknowledged that the FBI is looking into an alarming pattern of national security insiders, scientists, and officials who have either gone missing or been found dead under some very similar circumstances.
Specifically, the number being scrutinized right now is 10. That is the minimum number of deceased or missing aerospace insiders with high-level security clearances that lawmakers and investigators are currently looking into. As Burchett noted, and he kind of hit the nail on the head here, if 10 chefs or 10 used car salesmen mysteriously disappeared across the country, people would definitely notice. When it's 10 highly cleared defense scientists, Congress starts asking a lot of questions.
Let's ground these wilder claims in one specific, documented case that the FBI has been involved in. The case of Matthew Sullivan. Sullivan was scheduled to testify in front of Congress regarding UAP information. His testimony was officially deemed credible and urgent. But before he ever had the chance to speak, he died in what has been heavily scrutinized as a highly suspicious suicide. It's cases exactly like this one that have fueled immense skepticism about the safety of any whistleblowers trying to come forward.
And the evidence that these whistleblowers leave behind is pretty compelling. Journalist Jeremy Corbell's recent work highlights files from a late official who is actually in charge of all computer and cybersecurity at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. When he passed away, his family discovered documents that reportedly offer absolute, documentary proof that the government has independently been studying the UFO phenomenon and the origins of these crafts for decades. That directly contradicts almost all official public statements.
All of this intense secrecy and missing data leads us to our final part, Section 4, the push for disclosure.
We are currently witnessing some major real-time political friction. Elected officials are tired of being stonewalled, and they're utilizing legislative and executive power to force transparency like never before. The really crucial point is how this battle is playing out in the law between two very different legislative approaches. On one hand, you have Representative Burchett's original bill. It's just 2 pages long, demanding the immediate, flat-out release of all information. Super simple and direct. On the other side, you have Senator Chuck Schumer's bill. That one is 60 pages long, and it created a slow-moving review board structure. Advocates for immediate disclosure are incredibly frustrated by the Schumer approach. They point out that it perfectly mirrors the structure used for the JFK assassination files. And remember, those are files that, well over 60 years later, are still partially withheld from the public. People don't want new bureaucracy. They want the truth now.
And these lawmakers are totally willing to fight for it on the ground, too. Take the highly publicized Eglin Air Force Base incident. Representatives Matt Gaetz, Anna Paulina Luna, and Tim Burchett traveled all the way to the Florida base specifically to speak with pilots about a recent UAP incident. Initially, the military gatekeepers flat-out denied them access, but the lawmakers didn't back down. Gaetz, being a pretty tough attorney, threatened the base command with immediate subpoenas and contempt charges. Faced with that kind of legal fire, the base leadership relented. They actually invited them upstairs, allegedly even feeding them a taxpayer-funded fruit tray, and finally granted them the access they wanted to the pilots. It's just a perfect anecdote of the ongoing tug-of-war happening right now.
But the biggest shift might actually be coming from the very top. Breaking news indicates major executive action is in play. President Trump has publicly directed his newly appointed Pentagon Secretary, Pete Hegseth, to release the withheld UFO files, promising that the first releases are going to happen very, very soon. By utilizing executive authority, there's a real chance to entirely bypass the traditional intelligence community roadblocks that have historically bogged Congress down.
So what exactly is the public hoping to see when this happens? Well, the magic number is 46. Journalists and transparency advocates are specifically demanding the release of 46 classified military UAP videos. They don't just want these shown to a handful of politicians in a secure room anymore. They want them released out into the open to the general public so that everyday citizens and independent scientists can analyze the technology for themselves.
Which leaves us with our final, provocative thought for this explainer. What will those 46 videos actually reveal? If they truly show craft hovering endlessly over the ocean and accelerating with literal city-powering energy, How on earth will that change our understanding of physics, of global defense, and honestly, of our place in the universe? The push for disclosure has never been stronger than it is right now, but the ultimate question remains: is America, and the rest of the world, finally ready for the truth? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes on the news, and always keep asking the big questions.